My name is Michael Blakely, and I'm the founder of Entrepreneurs Collective. And we're bringing to you tonight one of our events as part of the Springboard 2021 series. We know last year was tough, and this year has started off tough as well for not only our startups, but for many of us. So what we wanted to do this year is to really help startups hit the ground running by putting a series of 15 free events over January and February to help you hit the ground running. But firstly, just let me introduce myself. I'm like many of you guys on this call, I'm a founder myself. I originally was a lawyer. I went a bit rogue, and before EC, I launched a dating app. You know, and whilst the dating app is doing well now, we have over 100,000 users, and we're post-revenue approaching our Series A. I have to say the first couple of years was tough. Daniel, next slide. You know, who do you talk to when things go wrong? Who do you go for investment? Where do you get referrals from? You know, I tried going to events, but I really found that there was a lot of bad quality events in London. So being an entrepreneur, I got together with some of my friends and set up our own community. And this is what EC is about. We are on a mission to help founders, and we are founders helping founders. And that's what we do. We do what we can to help your companies succeed. Just to give you a quick overview, what we do at EC, we do events like this. We help people with fundraising, pitch competitions. We negotiate good deals and benefits and credits for companies. We do things like deck reviews, and we give you access to workshops and help you find mentors. You know, you name it. If you have a problem, we will try and help you deal with it. But next slide. Tonight we're very lucky. We've got a great host in Julia Payne from Incisive Edge, who is going to be talking to us about digital marketing. We also have another great event before I head off next Tuesday, which is how to lead a remote product delivery team for you guys who have remote developers or are looking to build their product. So if we can get the next slide up, and we're going to hand over to Julia. We're very lucky to have Julia with us. Julia has incredible experience as a digital marketer. Not only has she built one successful digital marketing company, this is in fact her fourth. Is this your fourth, Julia, or fifth? I'm trying to remember.
So it's my fourth. Yeah, my fourth. Yeah.
Okay. So Julia, a multiple founder herself. And with 3 exits to her name, she's not only is she you know, a great digital marketer, but she knows what it takes to build a company and to sell it, which is why we're really lucky. So today we're going to get some great tips on how to maximize our digital marketing spend, but also Julia is going to use her knowledge of the investment world and her exits to also talk to you about how you can get your startup to tick the boxes for a VC and to use your digital marketing to scale and to get investment. So we're very lucky.
Mike, you're on mute there. You're on mute there, Mike.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you're back with us.
Okay, so sorry, a little sapu, but anyway, perfect timing anyway, because we'll hand over to you, Julia.
Excellent, Mike, thanks very much. And thank you to everyone for attending this evening. It's great to welcome you. And a thank you to Entrepreneurs Collective. So Incisive Edge is a new sponsor of Entrepreneurs Collective, and we're delighted to be associated with them. So as Mike said, what will we cover this afternoon or this evening? So just firstly, kind of a very small bit about us, and then looking at where your journey begins. So the 6 guiding principles that you can use as a startup and scale up founder that will really help inform your marketing in 2021. And then moving on to investor-led marketing. So what are the foundations you need to put into your company? Then through to the 6 steps to marketing success in 2021. So what do you really need to focus on? And then we're going to look briefly at the startup and scale up marketing, and then finish with those top 10 tips. So if we just move through swiftly, so Incisive Edge is a performance marketing agency, and that performance marketing bit is important because we are here to drive results as you are for your company. So we don't do what I would call happy clappy, whiffly waffly marketing. You know, we're very focused on driving those leads and the results. You know, and a small selection of our clients, and a couple of things that our clients have in common is that they're ambitious and they want to grow, but they want to grow properly. And by that, I mean that they want to put the strategic marketing foundations in place firstly to act as a catalyst for growth. So that's springboard. And that's what we'll be talking about today. And just to show you that it, you know, actually can be done. So one of our clients, we've been working with them for just over a year. They are a startup, and last week they closed a 25 million 4-year deal. In terms of our partners, apart from Entrepreneurs Collective, we also work with a lot of VCs. And the important point about this is that we understand it not just from the front end marketing, but also the back end. So what is it that VCs are looking for when they're looking to invest in companies? And we're going to talk more about this. And then just in terms of our expertise, so our HubSpot partners, so for any of you out there, kind of B2B or B2C, who are thinking about using HubSpot or actually using it and want to use it to really drive performance, we partner with HubSpot. And then we also partner with some accelerators as well. So we put the first digital marketing program for the Copenhagen Business School together. So, and that's me speaking over in Copenhagen. So let's turn to you now. So, you know, you're looking at marketing your startup or your scale up. So where does that growth journey really begin? And we talk about the guiding principles. This is what a lot of our founders say really helps inform their marketing. So the first guiding principle is marketing only exists to help drive sales. So yes, of course, brand is really important, but actually if you're looking at driving performance in your startup or scale up, is, you know, marketing is there to do exactly that, to drive sales, to drive revenue. And rather than thinking about marketing and sales as isolated functions, actually think about them as driving your revenue performance. So you don't want 2 disparate teams, you want them unified to drive those sales. And the second principle is strategy must always come before tactics. So we all know, and we have all been there, it's very tempting just to jump into execution and run a social campaign. But actually, what is really going to give you that springboard for growth? And it always comes down to strategy. So we're going to talk more about that. And then your third guiding principle, so really understanding your prospects and the customer journey that they take. So they are doing something before, during, and after they come to, whether it's your site, whether it's your app. So by understanding their customer journey, you can understand the questions that they will be asking and then help them overcome their objections. And we'll talk more about that as well. And then nobody needs more content in their life, more noise in their life. So your content really needs to deliver value before sales messages. So I know it's very tempting to actually push that message out there, especially when you're a startup and you're trying to find those prospects and those leads. But actually think about it in terms of really delivering value. So what are your prospects going to find most helpful when they come to your site? They have a pain point, need, or challenge. What do they want to see, and how can you help them through their customer journey? Then the fifth guiding principle is, and I talked about happy, clappy, whiffly, waffly marketing. You know, there's no place really now for just intuitive marketing. Reporting and optimization is absolutely key and must be placed on.
Julie, we appear to have lost your audio. Okay, guys, it looks like Julia, you've returned, but you're on mute. If we just unmute you, should be back with you in a moment. So bear with us, Julia. You're still on mute. I've asked you to unmute. Dan, are you able to unmute Julia?
She needs, yeah.
There we go. There we go. Sorry about that. Everything just died. So I don't know what happened there.
Okay, we'll need you just to reshare your screen as well, please.
Yeah.
Thanks.
There we go.
Brilliant.
Okay, excellent. So I was talking about reporting and optimization being based on performance data. So really delving down and analyzing that data so you understand what it's telling you. So rather than just basing it on intuitive marketing or intuitive thoughts and guesswork, really analyzing that data and seeing what it's telling you. And then finally, we talk about fast track delivery. So, you know, we're all marketers nowadays. Everybody's got access to a social platform. So on one hand, marketing is really easy and you can get out there in the market. On the other hand, actually to really drive those performance and results, it's far more difficult. You need the right tools and techniques. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's turn to investor-led marketing. So, you know, pretty much everybody is looking for investment. So the question always is, what will give you the advantage? And your advantage is this: you need to give the investors, your investors, what they want. And what they want is also what is going to help build your startup or scale up. You know, your marketing needs to deliver for your investors, but it also needs to deliver for you. And before we move into investor-led marketing, if we just look at the growth curve of startups and scale-ups. So, and I'm sure you've seen, you know, kind of different variations of these before. So as a startup, you're in foundation growth. And the question always is, what do we need to do and what do we need to focus on to actually drive through that first brick wall of growth? And it often comes down to investment and commitment. Once you've driven through that wall, then you enter the growth phase. And this is the really important part. You can see two lines there. So the bottom dotted line is sales-led only, and the top line is sales-led and equity. And we're going to talk more about it because it's absolutely vital to your marketing in 2021. Yeah. As you progress along your journey and your growth path, then you hit several brick walls along the path, but there's a key one around structure and skills. As you pass through that wall, you get into advanced growth. And as ever, you can increase, plateau or decline. But the really important point here is that there are two types of sales and your marketing must inform that. So there's a sales-led only revenue, and then there's the sales-led and equity. The two red arrows there indicate payback. And typically that's in a growth phase when you hit that tipping point. And payback is about when everything's going really smoothly, you're really hitting your sales targets, they seem to be very easy. So it's what do we have to do to achieve that? And this is broadly how the kind of investment piece maps against that growth curve. So in that foundation growth, and companies can mill around that stage for years, not knowing what to do to break through that first brick wall. That's typically around the self-funded and the pre-Series A. You know, pre-Series A tends to come after that first brick wall of growth. So it's about building revenue, then building revenue and equity, and then ultimately using your marketing to build revenue, equity, and scale. So this is our table for investor-led marketing, and you can see two columns. So on the left-hand side, we have the key areas of marketing that are going to help build your funnel and build equity value in your company. On the right-hand side, you can see the multiple increase of each of those different areas. Now, the important point about this is that you can see in the green, client, sales, marketing, staff and culture. That gets you in the game, but it doesn't necessarily increase the multiple value of your company, which people are always surprised about. So the question then is, what do you want as a founder, and what do your investors want, and what should your marketing and sales do to actually drive the equity value of your company? So this comes down to your systems and processes, your product, key, your channels to market, absolutely vital, your position in the market, then your brand, and ultimately building a scalable business model. So when you're thinking about your marketing in 2021, think about it in terms of, what am I really driving? What value am I really adding, not only to my marketing and my sales process, but also to my company? And this is where marketing can play a huge part. And it's a big difference. So it's far less now about vanity marketing and shares and likes and influencers. And the way forward is really focusing from the beginning of your startup and scale up journey on where you can build value in your company through your marketing and sales. And these are some of the familiar scenarios that we come across when we're speaking with our clients. So, our startups say, I want to create a global brand. And we always say, don't we all? Because would that it was so that you could just jump up to brand on that chart and increase your multiple value. But it doesn't work like that. You have to go through each of these stages to actually get to your position in the market, brand, and scalable business model. And that is key, obviously starting with your marketing and sales, those areas in green. We often hear there's nothing out there like us, we're unique. And again, we always say, well, I'm sure there are some competitors out there. And the important point for you is looking at your competitors, not just your direct competitors, but also your indirect competitors as well. So you can position away from your competitors, and this goes directly to your position in the market. As a scale up, they often say nobody can understand what we do. Again, that goes directly to position. And we'll talk more about positioning. And then obviously for all of us, we need more leads. Where should we actually use our marketing budget? Where are we going to get those leads from? Which goes directly to your channels to market. So when you're thinking about marketing in 2021, as I say, it's kind of far less around those direct channels to market in terms of we need to get out there, we need to execute straight away, and thinking about those strategic marketing foundations that you can put in place to drive not just your marketing and sales, but also the equity value of your company. So what do you need to do? Firstly, put the marketing foundations in place that will allow you to build revenue and equity, and then ultimately scale. And the sooner you do that, the better. So you don't have to backfill. The earlier you put this in, the earlier you get your marketing and sales function really pumping, the sooner that revenue will come in. And then prioritize each of those areas in turn. So really driving through on those areas and then moving on to the next. So easily said, but how do you actually do that? And this is where we turn to the 6 steps to marketing success. So the approach for you as founders and management teams is really, as an overview process, threefold. So firstly, strategy, putting your prospects at the very heart of your marketing strategy. And this is one thing that we hear a lot from tech founders, is that it's all very much around the product, the platform, the website, the app. But the reality is your prospects aren't interested in your platform. They are only interested in the what's in it for me. So strategy for you is about putting your prospects at the heart of everything, and every single bit of marketing that you do outside of brand should really be tailored to your prospects. Then moving on to implementation. So going out in market, finding that relevant target audience, and then engaging and nurturing them through their buying journey, not your sales journey, because they're two very different things. Your prospect's buying journey, is different to your sales process and your sales journey. And let me explain that. When you go onto sites, you often see, front and center on the homepage, kind of trial demo. So what you're expecting your prospects to do is come to your site. They don't know anything about you, and you want them to engage in your sales process straight away. But actually, they may not know anything about you, so they want to engage in their own buying and decision-making process. So when you're thinking about implementation, really focus in on your prospect and their customer journey. And then the other bookend is optimization. So ensure you're getting those marginal gains. So it's the old Dave Brailsford, British cycling team, a 0.3 here, a 0.2 there, will all add up to drive that continual performance. So when you're thinking about planning your marketing and sales, if you think about it in these three buckets, then hopefully that will be helpful. Strategy before tactics, so you do the strategy first, then you move on to implementation, and then continual optimization and reporting. So if that is your overarching model, what is the model that sits under there? So what are the granular pieces that you can really action, as a founder, as a member of the management team? And this is your kind of growth acceleration model for 2021. So you can see that there are 6 steps there, and we'll talk you through each of them. So the first 2 are around position and strategy. And if you remember, position really helps to increase your multiple value. So in position, you want to be really delving down into your buyer personas. So who is your target audience? And this is not just from a demographic point of view, but from a behavioral and an emotional point of view, because it is behaviors and emotions that really drive the decision making and the purchasing decision. So your buyer persona will have certain needs, wants, pain points, challenges. Is how do you overcome them? How do you understand those challenges and get your marketing to speak directly to your target audience? And you do that by creating your buyer persona, so a typical representation kind of your ideal buyer. And I'll show you an example in a moment. So with your buyer personas formed, understanding what their objections are going to be, then we move on to customer journeys. So as I said, your customers are not coming to you in isolation. They're coming to you because they have a pain point or a challenge. So by understanding their customer journey, what they're doing before they come to you, what they do when they're on your site, and where they go after, that helps to understand the questions that they will ask at each stage of that journey, which you can then overcome through your content, whether it's through social, so all your channels, you can play to your prospect for where they are in their customer journey and their buying decision process. Thirdly, then, under position is around competitive analysis. So understanding your competitors in detail, but the useful information from your competitors. So what's their value proposition? What's their position in the market? What are their key messages? Because what you want to do as a startup or a scale up is actually position away from your competitors. If you are saying the same thing as your competitors, there is typically only one way that this can go. It's be a price-led proposition, price-led discussion, and that is typically a race to the bottom. But you do need to understand the value proposition of your competitors. So what is the value that they deliver and the position that they're holding in the market? Position then feeds into strategy. So clearly having a understanding of your marketing objectives. So what are your key goals? What are you hoping to achieve? And then your position and value. So positioning is very much around winning the hearts and minds of your target audience. And there are 3 ways to position. So you can go on a head-to-head position. So you can take on a market leader, or you can be a big fish in a small pond. So really niche down and focus in on a specific area, or, and very relevant to tech companies, that you can create a market. And positioning will fall into, your position will fall into one of those 3 buckets. So actually understanding which one you should fall into, which one you want to be, how you want to position is absolutely vital. Position is around providing context to your target audience, so to your buyer persona. So by providing that context, they understand where you sit in the market, they understand your market position. And value, equally important. So value is around your value proposition. So what is the true value that you deliver to your target audience over and above your competitors? And often, especially on tech platforms, you'll see in above the fold area or front and center, a strap line or a tagline, which has been cleverly crafted, but doesn't actually say what you do on the tin. And if your prospects are having to kind of rummage around, whether it's your site or your marketing material, whatever it might be, to find out what it is that you actually do, then they're going to flit off and go to your competitors. So defining the value that you truly deliver to your target audience is absolutely vital. And with that, your messaging platform. So if you imagine a house, your value proposition is your roof, your position are your foundations, your messaging platform is really the walls of your house. So a messaging platform is used so everybody within the company is aligned around your key messages. And your key messages should support both your value proposition and your position. So just in summary on those 2 areas, create your buyer personas. If there is one thing that you take away from this session, I would urge it to be, create a buyer persona so you understand pain points, needs, challenges, objections, and the trigger points. So what are the triggers that will actually cause your prospect to come to you? Then do your competitive analysis, both direct and indirect, form your marketing objectives, create your value proposition and your position, and then create your messaging platform, because all of those areas are then going to feed into your website. So typically your global lead gen platform, even if you have an app, more apps are downloaded from websites than they are from the App Store for a whole variety of reasons. But make sure that your messages, your value proposition, your position are reflected across your website, because that ensures that your marketing and then your sales are aligned. From website, you move on to Playbook. So Playbook then is where it gets into the nitty-gritty of your marketing. So Playbook is about creating your campaign strategy. So there are so many channels to market nowadays, and just feeding in here, video being absolutely crucial, and video being also great for SEO as well. So don't forget that as part of your marketing strategy, but creating a campaign plan, a campaign strategy, so everything within your marketing is aligned. So for example, if you were going to create a content asset, you want to launch that as a campaign so that your emails are then talking about your content asset, your social is talking about it. So everything is aligned. Very difficult when you're in a startup and scale up. There's never enough kind of time, money, or resource. So it's thinking about how can you most effectively use your time and budget to get the biggest bang for your buck. And that is by creating a campaign strategy of which everything is aligned, and you're going out in the channels to market where your buyer personas are. And it's an important point as well, because one of the frequently asked questions is, well, which channels should we be in? And the answer to that is in the channels where your buyer personas are. So just because your competitors might be on every single social channel does not necessarily mean that you have to be there. So really focus in on where your buyer personas live online, and that's your channels to market. And just thinking back to investor-led marketing, so channels to market really helps to significantly increase your multiple value. From playbook, then you move on to execution. So if you think about fast track delivery, get something in market, get it out there, get your social channels, emails, all your marketing aligned, and get some test and learn data. And this is also where sales follow-up or sales enablement comes in. So your marketing and your sales teams kind of acting around revenue performance and acting in an integrated and aligned manner. And then finally, we have reporting and optimization. So in line with your objectives, make sure you focus on your KPIs and your metrics. What is really going to move the needle for you? What goals do you have to achieve? And then really focus in on optimizing your marketing campaigns, your marketing channels, your marketing materials, your website, so you're driving those marginal gains. So just a couple of things that I would pull out here is its point about going straight into execution. So you can see execution is there at number 5. Now, if you go straight out in market and start spending without putting those strategic foundations in place firstly, you will undoubtedly get some traction, but you will never get the traction that you want, need, or deserve because you haven't got those pillars in place. And I know it's very tempting, and we've all been there and we've all done it. You just want to get out into market because you either want to drive alignment or awareness, you want to get those leads in. But I would really urge you to think about, even if it's kind of top line at this stage, to put those pillars in place firstly. So that's your growth acceleration model for 2021. And if you follow this, it will give you the strongest foundations for your marketing, and to maximize your marketing spend, because ultimately that's what it's about. So every single pound needs to drive ROI for you and your business. And this is really how that model, the growth acceleration model, aligns with investor-led marketing. And it's broad brush, but you can see around position and strategy, that's very much around your clients in your buyer personas, your marketing through your objectives, your position in the market and your brand by your market position, your internal positioning. Then obviously your website is very much around your brand. Your playbook is around your channels to market, as is your execution. And then you've got your reporting and optimization, again, around your clients. So this is how everything starts to align. So hopefully that's a useful model for you. And equally important is the customer journey and your marketing funnel. And marketing funnels have been around for a long time in different formats, but this is, and they come in many stages, so you can have 7, 8 stages, but this is the one which I hope will be really helpful to you. It's a simple model, however, very effective. So at the top, we have awareness, then moving on to consideration, and then down into decision. So awareness, thinking about it from your prospect's perspective, is very much around information and education. So they come to you, they don't know you, they want to understand more about you and what you have to offer. And different channels align with different stages of the funnel. So if you imagine in awareness, it's very much about you getting out there in market. So it's around your social channels, it's around your blogs, so informative, educational content, so smaller, kind of more open content assets in terms of guides. So at an awareness level, you wouldn't necessarily be creating thought leadership. That would come further down the funnel. Then in consideration, as your prospects moves down their kind of buying and decision-making process, it's very much around, you may now be one of a short list. So what does your prospect need? Well, they want to understand more about you. They want to understand your credibility. They want to see testimonials and case studies. And then as we move further down the funnel into decision, that's where you want to really convert them to tip them over the line. So what is it you need to provide? So that's where data sheets, facts and figures come in, pricing information. Now, if you remember that each of these stages of the funnel is like a mini funnel in itself, is you want to get them from the top of awareness to the bottom of awareness. You then want to move them on through to consideration and then on to decision. So the question is, how do you do that? And you have heard of nurturing and your content assets leading people down that funnel. So you want to nurture them down. That might be through automated workflows, might be through a series of emails, but you want to think about your prospect. How quickly can we get them down that marketing funnel to the bottom? On the right-hand side, you have life cycle stages, which is pretty much kind of the marketing funnel mapped against your lead funnel. So at the top, there's engagement. Then you will be generating leads. You want them to turn into marketing qualified leads, then onto sales qualified leads, become an opportunity, so then you can close them. So that's broadly aligned your life cycle stages, so your lead funnel, aligning with your buyer's journey. So when you're creating your marketing assets or when you're going out to market, if you think about where does this fit into the marketing funnel, because that will really help align everything you do in marketing, the channels to market, not only against your lead funnel, but against your prospects' buying journey. And this is just the alignment between marketing and sales. So we often get asked, what part is marketing, what part is sales? And you can see that there. So typically engagement and leads and marketing qualified leads belong to the marketing department. Sales qualified leads often to the sales department. But if you think about it, if a lead goes to sales and either the data is poor or the prospect is not ready yet to buy, what happens to that lead? So in an ideal world, it should go straight back up into marketing so they nurture it again. More often than not, because time is short, that lead falls by the wayside. But again, just a way of thinking in 2021 about your marketing and being really targeted and focused. And the point to remember about your prospects is they only care about three things. Who are you? What's in it for me? And why should I believe you? And if you keep this at the front and center of your kind of marketing mind, your marketing plan, it will serve you in good stead. So who are you? That goes to your value proposition and your position in the market. What's in it for me? So can I see my pain point, need, or challenge evidenced on your website? If I can't, then I'll move on to competitors. And then finally, why should I believe you? That goes to your credibility assets. So those are the three things to bear in mind when thinking about your marketing, and particularly about your larger marketing assets, such as your website. And I've just put in the deck, and you'll get this, just a few examples which I thought you might find helpful. So looking at marketing objectives, how do you actually align your objectives across a funnel? Giving you an example there. How do you define your target audience and then evidence it so everybody within the company can buy into it and everybody knows who you're going after? So just a few examples, similarly with your sectors as well. So it's about bringing it to life, delving down into the detail and being very specific about it. And I've also put in an example of a buyer persona because people also always find these really useful. So you can see the buying stages there, the potential objections, what hot topics are they interested in? What are their personal drivers? So going back to they're driven by emotional and behavioral drivers. What are their personal drivers? Because then you can play to them. What are their pain points? What are their success measures? So all these things go to form your buyer persona, so you understand them deeply, and so your marketing can play to each of these areas. Similarly as well, and kind of more often in a B2B sense, there will be a decision-making unit, influencers, stakeholders, and decision makers. So understanding the role that each person plays at each stage of the funnel is absolutely crucial. So your marketing should speak to your buyer persona with the right message for where they are in the stage of their funnel and for their role. And then moving on to roles. So if you're considering paid marketing, so actually understanding the roles of each of your buyer personas is absolutely vital. So you can laser target them. So you're not wasting a penny and you're really driving ROI all the time. And then again, understanding, where they sit in that customer and buying funnel. And then a customer journey. So this was from a more complex one summarized. So it doesn't have to be complex. You just need a very clear customer journey. So you're outlining what they're doing before they come to you, when they're on your site, and when they leave you. Where do they live online beforehand? Where do they live online afterwards? And then bringing the customer benefits to the fore as well. And then I've just popped in a campaign strategy against the different stages of the funnel and against the different channels that you may find helpful. So just turning to startup marketing, and this is a way of chunking up your priorities. So plan, build, and grow. So in the planning stage as a startup and scale up, obviously product market fit, all important, but that customer profiling, so your buyer personas, creating your value proposition and your position in the market. So really delving down into that plan stage. Then building up to drive revenue. So it's all about generating those leads, getting the brand out there and having that alignment between marketing and sales, and then driving those sales conversions. And then ultimately it's about growth and building that scalability. So looking at how do you automate your processes, your internal processes and systems and external partners to drive that growth strategy. And this is a typical profile of a startup, and we've all been there and we all understand it. So it's about driving the revenue. Actually, we don't want to do strategy, or we've done a bit of strategy internally and we think that's enough. We just want to get straight into execution. But actually, this is the profile of your startup that you should be looking for. So kind of delving down heavily into the strategic elements. So you've got that springboard for growth, less around driving revenue at this stage. So it doesn't mean to say that it's not important, because it's vital, but actually it's about focus and priorities. Then driving that revenue, kind of lower on building scalability, because you're putting in the strategic pillars in place and also creating that lead revenue engine. Then building the scalability. For a scale up, conversely, that business planning part has been done. Now it's all about driving revenue and building scalability. So you can see how the emphasis as you grow kind of differs. And this is a strategic marketing framework, not ours. It's probably one that you've seen before, but it's useful in the sense of, thinking about that marketing funnel and the role that marketing and then sales play in it. So attract, convert, close, and delight are largely the different stages that your prospects will go through. So you want to attract them, then you want to convert them, then you want to close, and then ultimately you want them to become brand advocates, or raving fans. But at the start of that process, they're strangers. You want to move them into visitors, then onto leads, customers, and then you want to create them as promoters. So marketing focus will typically be between attract and convert. So they're coming to your site as strangers, and your marketing focus then through your channels to market, through your strategic foundations, is really to take them down to that lead stage. Then there's a marketing and sales focus between leads and customers, and then your customer success focus. So when you're thinking about your marketing this year, if you bear this in mind, really helps to give that focus and, focusing on those priorities. And I've just put in there as well some funnel metrics that you might find helpful when you're thinking about your marketing funnel and those strategic areas. So things that you want to be focusing on to really drive the growth of your business. So just finally moving on to those top 10 tips. So the marketing in 2021, kind of what's different, how can you really drive that growth within the company? So the first thing to remember is positioning is everything. So positioning gives context, give yourself the advantage and position your company, your startup, your scale up properly against your competitors. So your prospects can really see the value that you deliver. Build your strategic foundations. Firstly, revenue and equity, and then revenue, equity, and scale. And remember, it's about the prospect, not you. And, whether this is marketing for 2021 or it's always been there, but just really not brought out that clearly, is the most successful companies will really focus in on their prospects. That's all important. And every single piece of marketing will be tailored to them. Only use the channels where your prospects live online. So you don't need to be across every channel. And as a startup, your budget won't stretch that far. So really focus in on the channels where your prospects live online. And as I said, don't just jump straight into execution. You'll burn through your budget that way. And then if you need to put those foundations in place, there won't be enough left. So really think about, where do we want to spend our marketing dollars? And it's about revenue, not marketing and sales. So, people get kind of really hung up on, it's a marketing activity, it's a sales activity, but actually it's a revenue performance activity with both departments acting in harmony, being integrated and aligned. And then build your marketing and lead funnel as a first step. At some point, you are going to have to do this. So avoid having to backfill, build that lead funnel, really give it thought right from the start, because then you can align everything, so every piece of marketing and your sales processes around that funnel. And remember, if we go back to awareness, consideration and decision, so each of the parts of the funnel require a different strategy and tactics. So at awareness, it's about information and education. In consideration, it's around building credibility and providing more granular assets. And its decision, it's how can you get them over the line? And then ask yourself, what is the next thing that's going to add value? So going to those priorities is, there's, as we know, there's 101 kind of calls on your time and things that you must do, but what is really going to add value to you? And then work to those defined metrics. So if you're thinking back to the growth acceleration model, you're defining your marketing objectives, what metrics are going to align with those objectives to really drive your growth forward and enable you to use marketing as a powerhouse to drive your growth. And just in terms of my contact details, I've got them there. I've put my mobile down as well. So if you would like to email me for a free growth session, then please do feel free, and we can go through any aspect that you want to discuss. So I hope that has been helpful. I think that's time for now. So Matthew, shall I hand back to you?
Sorry, just taking a moment to unmute there. Yes, thank you very much. Very insightful, a lot of information shared there. You've got lots of people asking for the slide share and the recording in the chat. Don't worry, everyone who's subscribed to this series of events will be emailed to notify of where to collect those. But we had a lot of questions coming in during the chat as well. Daniel's going to unmute or offer you the chance to unmute yourselves now as participants. So if there's anything you'd like to put to Julia, please do. I can see Richard and Marco chomping at the bit. I will let you self-regulate as we go forward, unless things get a bit too crowded. But I open it up to the floor now with any questions.
Hi, Julia, if I may go first. I'm Yogita Joshi. I'm founder of a food brand called Goodness Foods. Thank you, first of all, a big clap, and hugely benefited from your slides. You are quite a guru. What I wanted to understand is a couple of things. I will definitely take you up on your offer to do something one-to-one.
Excellent.
Is there anything different we should do? I mean, these slides look somewhat skewed towards B2B in terms of prospects, etc. Considering I'm managing a B2C brand, are there some minor tweaks is one question. And the other is there any point at which you would recommend us going and looking for investment? I mean, where is that pivot point? If you can just throw some light on that.
Yeah. So in terms of the B2, so thank you for your questions. In terms of the B2C point, so we work both B2B and B2C, and actually these principles apply to both. The biggest difference will really be in the channels to market. So, you know, all the strategic foundations are all still relevant, but the biggest one is really, you know, there's so many channels out there to market. So video kind of works really well across both B2B and B2C, but it's really in the social elements, you know, and the social channels that the big difference comes in. But, you know, kind of speaking to your prospects is no less relevant in B2C. The funnel is slightly different as well. So it's a more open funnel in B2C than a more prescribed funnel in B2B. And obviously you tend not to have things like decision-making units in a B2C sense, but the rest of the principles remain. In terms of when you're going out for investment, so it's a difficult one to answer because each case is bespoke. But, you know, investors will expect you to have done certain things, like usually a family and friends round, you know, a kind of angel investment, then start off with, goes to pre-seed and seed. But it's really when you've got those foundations in place, you know, you can use those as a springboard, and investors, you know, often want to see, not every investor, but often wants to see kind of your revenue generating plan, and or that you're generating revenue already. But it's very, when you go to seek investment, is very specific to each case. Does that help to give you kind of a general idea?
Absolutely, Julia. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hello, Julia. This is Marco, and thank you so much for this amazing session. Really, really helpful. I'd like to ask if you can share a situation where you managed to overturn a bad sales trend for one of your customers, and how.
So just so I understand the question, managed to overturn a bad sale to a strength.
Yeah, no, a bad sales trend for one of your customers, which weren't selling as expected. Maybe you came in and through some tactics you managed to overturn.
Oh, okay, all right. So I see where you're going. Yeah, okay. So let me give you a specific example. Is that we have a client over in the US, and they have been through a lot of marketing agencies. And, you know, it would be a typical marketing agency that focuses, you know, a lot on kind of brand, and that's what they've done for the client. They'd also set up HubSpot. So, and in fact, they're a good client to speak, they're B2B2C. They'd set up HubSpot, you know, and this is kind of a learning for anybody who's using HubSpot is, or any marketing automation tool. People tend to go a bit mad on it and get really excited and start setting up things all over the place. So when we came to the client is they had very few leads. They had 140 workflows in HubSpot, which were all cancelling each other out, and it was all a bit of a mess. So we sorted out all their automation, all their systems and processes, and did exactly what I have shown you here today. And that's one point that I would emphasize is we went through this process. And by really focusing in on their buyer personas, you know, kind of we turned their marketing around, started increasing their leads kind of exponentially. But also the interesting point is that we also found new markets. So once you start getting really granular about your marketing and sales, kind of instead of, because the fear always is from people that we're going to be too niche, we're going to be too small, there's a whole market that we can appeal to. But the fact is, often by niching down, new markets then tend to appear because you're really focused in on your buyer persona. So we did that, and from their previous agency, so they had their previous agency for 12 months. In our test and learn campaigns, so again, doing exactly what I've said to you, in 3 weeks, we generated more leads than the previous agency had generated in 12 months. And now they're just on a huge growth path.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Marco.
Anybody like to step in? Adam Drury, I think you had a question there, if you're still on the call.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. It's a really great presentation. I was just wondering, what software do you use to measure your campaigns or automation tools? I know you mentioned HubSpot, but is there anything in particular that you'd recommend?
Yeah, so one thing I would say is, and we've used every single kind of marketing automation piece. So the HubSpot's the one we recommend, especially for startups and scale ups. One, and not primarily, but they have a fantastic deal on for startups where you get a 90% discount in the first year, 50%, then 25% in the third year, but also because it's really intuitive. So other platforms that you will find helpful in terms of kind of startup, but also as you grow, things like SEMrush, where you can get your data analytics, Moz, M-O-Z, which gives you your domain authority. You can run site audits on. There's a relatively new one out there called SparkToro, which gives you some really good audience insights. And also, if you're looking at forming partnerships, gives you some good partnership insights as well. So, does that answer your question and give you a flavor? There's a myriad. Okay, great. There's a myriad of platforms out there. If anybody needs any help or guidance on which ones, are better, or is it worth it, please just let me know, because you can spend/waste a lot of money kind of going after the latest thing, and it's not often going to add to kind of your marketing or sales effort for where you are at the moment.
Great stuff. Richard Jenkins, you had some questions in the chat. Did you want to jump in? Is he with us or on mute? So Richard's questions, I'll put them in case others were interested. He actually asked, on one of your previous slides, he was saying, why don't clients drive more of a multiple?
Yeah, so good question, because you need clients in essence to have a business. So it's a prerequisite. So for example, that's why the other areas are there as well. So marketing and sales, because it gets you in the game. Now, obviously, as you grow, and you've got a position in the market, having a marquee client is going to be fantastic. So if you have a big brand name, so obviously that's going to help add to the multiple. But when you're starting off, having that marketing process, kind of having the sales, having the team, and then having clients is a prerequisite of actually, being in the game. That then acts as your foundation from which you add those other pillars, position, brand, channels to market, which then all together go to give that increase in multiple value. Conversely, if you have a brand but no clients, that's not going to really add anything either. So it works both ways.
Brilliant, thank you. I think that's it for questions from the chat. So please, again, open to the floor if anyone on the call would like to ask a question.
Julia, it's Nirosh here.
Hello there, Nirosh.
Hi. I just want to get a rough idea of what the costs are in engaging with a digital marketing agency. Let's just say, I'm looking at a specific target market. Let's just say it's primary schools and nurseries,
yeah.
And I have to decide whether I want to just do a one-off lead generation campaign, or whether we roll out something on an ongoing basis. So the difference between a one-off campaign versus, monthly attacking the, lead generation and getting messages out there to that group.
Yeah. So it's a difficult question to answer, but I'll do my best, because obviously every agency differs. But if you think about it this way, there are two kind of primary buckets that marketing will fall into. So there's your organic side, which is your SEO, your emails, your social channels, your content. So that's organic. You're growing organically. Then there is your paid side, and that falls into paid media, which is paid search, your PPC ads, your display ads, and your remarketing, and then paid social. So if you are looking as a startup, or scale up, so if you are looking at cost-effective marketing, then by far the cheapest way is to follow that organic route, because you can create content in-house, you can do the social in-house, you can do email in-house, so you can do all those elements. Now, the big difference between the two is that organic is a far longer haul in terms of generating results than paid media. So if you go for paid, you can get more immediate results because you're putting up a paid campaign and you can see the results straight away. So the first point is it's always a balance between the two. Organic is far cheaper for you, but slower. Paid is more immediate, but more expensive. So, and marketing, with a few exceptions, should always be really a blend of paid and organic marketing. So a blend of the two. There's very few cases where it's just ever going to be kind of one single channel. Now, I say that to your question about what do digital marketing agencies charge, is that because as founders, you don't have time to create your own content, then often people will put content out to an agency, which, and there's different levels of content that you can have. But as a rule of thumb, that, and if you think about it in single channels and then an integrated campaign, if you were looking at single channels, say you're going after search engine optimization, you're going to optimize your content, optimize your blogs, optimize your site, then you could be looking at anything from, say, £1,000 upwards. If you're running multi-channel campaigns, it could be from kind of £2,500 to £3,000 upwards. Just as but that's a very kind of broad rule of thumb, but to give you some guidelines.
Take a moment to interject here, just to, Julie, there are some special offers available for small pieces of work from Incisive Edge. If you're looking for SEO research or App Store research, for example, Julia.
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of as a supporter and a sponsor of Entrepreneurs Collective, then we're delighted to offer discounts to members. So if you are interested, and in some cases we offer 50% discounts. And if you're thinking, say, for example, about HubSpot, and Entrepreneurs Collective are part of that group where you can get that discount, then we will onboard and train you for free, if you do it through us. So we want to support the startup and scale up community. That is our kind of target audience. I've been there myself. My co-founder's been there himself as well. So we want to give back wherever possible. So, and even if you've got kind of any questions, or please do just get in contact with me.
Any further questions from the audience?
If there is time, I have another quick one.
Yeah, for sure, Marco.
And hopefully it's not a too tough one. Just me having had, unfortunately, bad experiences with marketing agencies. How would you assess a situation where the company is not selling at the target they set versus recognizing the performance of the marketing agency?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. Now, it's very easy for a marketing agency. So a client comes to you and says, I want leads. Okay. So, and this is why you would probably have had a bad experience, because we hear it many times. Now, in a way, no marketing agency wants to say to a prospect, well, no, you can't generate leads because you haven't got X, Y, and Z in place. So typically what happens is that the agency will agree to do what the client wants, often knowing that they may not have the budget or the kind of the different steps in place to actually achieve what the client wants. So I think from a client point of view, so for you, kind of all looking, if you were looking for an agency, is kind of the key thing that you want to find is an agency that is very transparent and very direct. So let me give you an example, and this is a live example from a call I had today. It's a startup, completely new startup. They are in stealth mode. Other agencies have promised them that they'll be driving leads from about week 2. It is simply not going to happen because they have no awareness in the market. So nobody knows they exist. They're still in stealth mode, so nobody knows they exist when they come out onto the market. So they have got to drive that awareness either through paid marketing or through organic marketing. Now, if you go through organic, that's going to take 6 to 12 months at least. So you're not going to be driving huge amounts of leads. So I think that's a really important point, is find an agency that you can trust and that just does not agree with you first off, and will take you through, say, for example, the process that we have. Here's the funnel, this is where you'll come in at, these are the activities that you need to drive.
Amazing. Thank you, Julia.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, well, that seems to be all the questions that people would like to ask for now. But of course, as Julia has said, she's available. Her email, LinkedIn and website contacts are all in the chat there, so please take them down. A copy of the video and the slides will be shared by everyone, shared to everyone by email following this presentation, I think the next day or so. So once again, a big thank you very much to Julia. Very insightful and a lot of information in that presentation. And I wish you all the best with your startups. Please join us at the next event. I think, Daniel, if you've got the details there, we have managing remote developers, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, correct. Up in a second.
Okay, this slide should go up on screen any moment. I say, I mean, the original, I think, purpose of the presentation was looking at managing remote developers, because offshoring can save you so much money. But in this day and age, we are all remote something or others. So, you know, anyone recruiting a developer right now will experience a lot of the work done, you know, even if they're based in the UK, as a remote team. So definitely tune in there to learn some of the necessary skills and management techniques. And yes, all the best with your evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for attending.
Cheers.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.